All right, welcome back to another tier list. Today we're going to be talking about vanilla Panoceania. So, vanilla armies, generally speaking, became, I think, more interesting this edition because they're more like just another sectorial that has like a mix of a couple different sectorials worth of stuff. Now, they tend to have a bigger variety at the cost of fire teams. So you usually don't get a core. Sometimes you have a Harris and a limited amount of duos. So, and if you look at these fire teams, there is not going to be a ton of things that count as other things. Like a blade counts as a bolt, Quinn counts as a bolt. Oh, that's reinforcement wildcards. Yeah, like you don't even have wildcards in your regular fire teams. So, you know, about the only duo that you can have that isn't two of the same thing, or Harris that isn't two of the same thing, is going to be Patsy with Orcs or Patsy with Helots. Um, if that makes sense. Where is the Helot on here? Today, no, not a surprise. I thought there's a Helot. Okay, I just couldn't see. Was blind. Confirmed. So speaking of Helots, uh, Helots and Vanilla are extremely good. Uh, they have fire team options. They're AVA2. Um, and if you take Patsy, they basically turn into regular orders. They're not really an auto include, but the camouflage is handy. The surprise attack is not super handy because they have neurocynetics. Um, so in active turn, they're not great for these camo ones. But in ARO, they are quite annoying to deal with. And I quite like them as a handy little, you know, speed bump. The FTOs are really inexpensive and are good ARO pieces that can be in a fire team. And they have the added utility of sensor. Sensor's a great skill, helps you discover things, helps you sweep an area for hidden things. Um, I think Helots are quite good. I think they're probably A tier. They're just so inexpensive, and your opponent has to respect their existence. Next up is Phoenix. These are basically Fusiliers that trade armor for BTS, have terrain desert, which, okay, but their equipment is of significant interest. I'm not going to cover every option they have, but the ones that stand out to me personally are the hacker with SMG emitter Fast Panda. That's a pretty cool piece of kit. The Mine Layer Thunderbolt Extra Burst Shock Mine for 14 points. That's a great little piece. The SMG Light Rocket Launcher for 0 Swick and 12 points. Uh, and then the Forward Observer with Disco Baller. There is a ton of utility in these guys uh, that I think is just worth mentioning. Now, in vanilla, they can't really fire team as far as I can see. Um, I'm not seeing any Fenix in here. So that's a little unfortunate for them. But I do think this hacker is worth looking at. And the Forward Observer Disco Baller is just, for how cheap they are, it's pretty handy. I'm going to stick them in B tier just for the utility and the cost. Fusiliers. I I really don't know what Fusiliers are doing in this army. Similar to Fenix, but with significantly less interesting equipment. Um, the Forward Observer trades a Disco Baller for deployable repeater. I'd rather have a disco baller most of the time. These guys, they're just there to do orders. You know, they're fine. Okay, magistrates. Magistrates are very good. Counterintelligence in Pano is new and amazing. They are fire team masters with jackals, but I don't know if that matters here. Yeah, that does not matter here. They cannot fire team. But they do have strategos as an option. So 19 points gets you a specialist counterintelligence biovisor lieutenant. And you also have a chain of command option. I think these guys are quite good. Again, a sub 20 point lieutenant that donates his order is very good. Sub 20 point counterintelligence is also very good. My gut tells me these are A tier. I think a lot of armies would be happy to have it. I think you're going to consider taking this lieutenant pretty often. You do have quite a few lieutenant options in this army. But this is one of the cheaper ones that actually provides you with value that is safe. Safe as in you're not activating them. If something gets close to this guy, he's going to have a bad time. So he is a little obvious, but still very good. Blades, I think blades are great. I think these parachutist engineers are fantastic. A blade FTO engineer fire teamed with a bolt is a great little duo. You know, tack aware, helping shuttle a bolt around and able to repair a tag or other heavy equipment. Blades are fantastic. I'm a big fan. Their points cost is great. They can fight. They can do objectives. And fueling a fire team is a really, really great thing. Blink team. So this is a hidden deploy camo Mim 6 thing. It's a little bit like a Hexa, which is probably the worst example I could use because I think nobody knows what Hexas do. But a 28-point X-Visor heavy rocket launcher in hidden deployment is something that everybody needs to respect. I've said it a lot, and I'll say it again. Hidden deployed models make your entire army better. Hidden deployed models with templates are especially devastating to enemy fire teams if you do catch them off guard. 28 points for a heavy rocket launcher in hidden deployment at BS 13 with MIM 6 and an X-Visor is all quite good. Assault pistol up close is good. Wild Parrot is good. I think the Blink is a very, very, very good piece. Just to note, with a heavy rocket launcher, that makes it flat from 32 to 48. So on 0, that is very good. It means there's not really a safe place to be. So where do I put the Blinks? They make your army better. I think every army would like to have a Blink available to them. I could be wrong. S tier. Makes the army better just by existing. Vanilla armies are hard to play against because they could have so many different things. And because you're not committing to fire teams as readily, you have more points to shove into something like this. So, yeah, they're great. Blockers. Blockers are also great. Inexpensive, under 20 points for a hacker with firewall at WIP 13 BTS 3. This is, in Pano, a pretty premium hacker for not a very big expense. They also have a pitcher at BS 12 with BS attack +1 burst, which is great. They have Discover Reroll and Sensor, which is pretty hilarious with Biovisor and X-Visor, actually. So, X-Visor does work on Discover, so it's going to be 0 range out to 48 on its Discover with a reroll and Sensor, which means you're +6 to Discover camo tokens. So you're on, 19s against camo tokens. Obviously, their mimetism will reduce it down and cover and all that stuff, but still, this is a handy little piece. Now, it is let down a little bit by the fact that it can't fire team, but a burst 2 pitcher and being one of the best hackers in your army, easy A tier for me. Blockers are great. They have great kit. Um, and don't underestimate those multi pistols either. Drummers. Drummers, there's kind of a lot going on with drummers, but I'm going to kind of sum them up in you get a lady, and then you get a rowboat, and they fight things. The lady has a marksman rifle, which is usually has a marksman rifle. One version has a sniper. And then you have a bunch of different drum bots. My gut feeling is that most of these are only okay. I think they are fun, but I think they are highly vulnerable for how expensive they are. So you're looking, if you want to take the hyper rapid magnetic cannon, right? So that's Drumbot 2. You're looking at a 42-point investment, and once the Drumbot dies, which is only armor 1, it is a very good gunfighter. BS 13 Mim 3 is excellent. And it is a remote. You can put marksmanship on it. But, all that said, it's a lot of points on a 1 structure model with 1 armor. And even worse is if the drummer dies, the peripheral goes inactive. And the drummer itself is not at all durable. Just BS 13, armor 1, BTS 3. That's it. So this is one of the biggest glass cannons I think this army has. So I feel as though I actually kind of prefer the cheaper variations of them, like the Forward Observer one. But I don't know. I don't know where I stand with them. Drummers, I don't think they're D tier. I think they're C tier. I need to play with them more, but I just have a lot of concerns about so many points being wrapped up in something that is so vulnerable in so many ways. This is one. Leave me a comment. Tell me I'm wrong. I want to love this thing, but I have a hard time with the points investment that it is. Knock. I've talked about Knock before. I think Knock are much improved this edition. I'm not sure what they do in this army. You have a lot of Mimetism 6. Like, kind of a lot. And I don't think they're the best. They don't have any fire team options. I think they're a C tier in this army. I don't think they're bad. I just think you can do better. And kind of speaking of doing better, I think the Zulu Cobra is a better Knock. Having camo state is huge. Obviously, you've got less mimetism, a little bit less forward deployment, right? You lose 4 inches on that. But the camo state is huge. The killer hacker, especially having the breaker combi rifle, which is a fantastic weapon, 2 pitchers. Wow, that's amazing. And the assault pistols, the 2 pitchers has to be in air, by the way. I'm just teasing. Like, this profile right here does pretty much everything I would want a Knock specialist to do, but in camo state. So, Zulu Cobra, I think, are excellent. I'm tempted to put them in S tier because of how much I'm biased towards them, but I don't think they're there. I think other armies have things like the Zulu Cobra, but boy, I'm a huge fan of the Zulu Cobra. I cannot recommend it enough. Machinist, this is a very basic engineer. I think you have better. Again, I'm a big fan of the Blade. Blade's a little bit more expensive, but significantly better in most cases. And there's still 2 more engineers to talk about in this army. The engineer does not make your army worse, but it is just fine. The Tech B, 9 points for a regular order is good. You're often going to be interested in that. The Gizmo Kit, Fizz +1 for your tag is fine. The deployable repeater as equipment on the Tech B is also fine. I think she's C tier though. I think she's better than a Fusilier because she's 1 point cheaper if you're looking at a basic order. Uh, Beyond that, her kit and ability tagcom abilities are of marginal use. Trauma docs are similar to regular engineers. You do have a better doctor in this army, air quotes better. We got to get to them still. There's nothing wrong with a trauma doc though. It's a C tier model. It's fine. Okay, Dr. Priya Harper. This is Laura Croft. She is very interesting. Nanoscreen X visor with a plasma carbine is interesting kit. She's a specialist. She's got tac aware. She has viral pistols with extra burst and SWIC +1. She's kind of a 2 wound model with NWI shock immune, but she is only armor 1 with the nanoscreen, so she's somewhat durable. I think she's expensive. I think she's very fun to play with. I think the 35 point forward deploying one, if you get first turn, this can actually be quite good. Booty is funny. Dodge +3 is a nice skill to have on her. But I think she's expensive, and I think you have better options. So C tier, I think she's fun. I think you should play with her, but I'm just not convinced. All right. Bipandra is next. So this is your better doctor. She's quite a bit more expensive, but she is a significantly better doctor. She's better whip. She has doctor reroll -3. So you're highly likely to doctor something. She also has a medkit +1 burst. So you don't need the fire team to get the extra burst medkit to, make it a more reliable medkit experience. 23 points is not that expensive. 25 points for tac awareness is not that bad. I don't think she fire teams in this army. No, she doesn't. Even though I think she's probably better than the doctor, I think they're right next to each other. I think they're fine. Yeah, I'm not excited about either of them. Okay, motorized bounty hunter. Motorized bounty hunters are good. They're significantly less good than they were last edition. The submachine gun got nerfed. You can no longer choose if you're impetuous or not. But all that said, there's something to be said about an 8 or 9 point really fast model that can punish poorly deployed opponents. I think they're fine. I think if you're doing a Joan of Arc list, they get significantly more valuable. But I don't find them to be that exciting. I think they're C tier, maybe B tier in this army. They do add something that you don't have access to as readily. So maybe that's fair. Sasha, everyone has this model. They're okay. They add some utility. If you're taking Joan, their value goes up significantly. But I feel compelled to put them in C tier. They are, in fact, fine. But that's about as far as I would go there. Let's zoom out a little bit. Will that make it better? Not really. It kind of does. We'll go like that. Okay, war cores. War cores are fine. Like I mentioned earlier, if you've got Joan in your army as a lieutenant, their value goes up quite a bit, but that's not enough for me to push them out of C tier. They're perfectly fine. Banshees. So this is a MSV1 combat jumping parachutist that is pretty darn inexpensive, has access to hacking and killer hacking profiles, has decharges on all of their models. So There's a lot of classifieds that this model can do with its MSV, with its D charges. Um, I just like it. It's there. Uh, it's a solid B tier model. I don't. It doesn't really blow my socks off. I don't think this is the best parachutist in the world. I think it is good for its points cost. I think it will struggle against hard targets. I think it is extremely range limited. Um, I think a lot of people underestimate like a combi rifle's ability on a parachutist. I think you're often going to be in 0 or -3 range with some of these weapons, and you're not going to feel super good about that. So it's good. It's inexpensive, so you can slot it in easily. I like it. Fireflies. Oh, fireflies are very good. If you are not taking a magistrate, the NCO is extremely useful. There's a ton of kit here. Can they fire team is a question that I want answered. Does not look like they can fire team, which is unfortunate, but I like the engineer. I like the chain of command. I really like the mine layer turret. Turrets just slow your opponents down, and that can be really handy. The heavy rocket launcher albedo in some matchups can be extraordinarily useful. Other times it will be only okay, so bit situational there. I quite like the fireflies. I think that mine layer marksman rifle is extraordinarily useful in an army. It can really help keep you alive when you don't have first turn. So I'm going to stick them in A tier. Honestly, that profile alone, but I do like the access to chain of command. And they just have a lot of kit I like. An NCO, always good. Karhu, my beloved Karhu. They can fire team in this army. You can take 2 of them in a fire team, so you can peer them. S tier, easy S tier. I love Karhu. NCO is great. Mimetism is great. MSV1 is great. Climbing Plus is great. A +1 burst Feuerbach is great. An engineer that can fire team with somebody is great. A paramedic that can fire team with somebody is great. Yeah, I'm a massive fan of these guys. They just kind of do everything you want for a very, very reasonable price. MSV1 Mimetism is just great. Karhu are great. The fact that you can duo them is great. Speaking of great, bolts. Bolts are also great, and you can fire team them, and they fire team with your blades. The MSV1 multi-sniper is fantastic. I actually like the chain of command as well. 26 points for a competent chain of command model is fine. The hackers, BTS 6 hackers that can fight with their burst 3 boarding shotguns and EM mines, both of those are good. Drop bears are interesting pieces of kit worth thinking about. Big fan. I'm going to put bolts in S tier as well. I think most armies would love to have bolts, and this army is certainly happy to have them. That doesn't mean you need to take them every time, but man, bolts and Karhu able to duo or Harris. You can have a Harris of bolts if you'd like. It's just money. It's so good. All right, black AIRs, black airs, MSV2, MIM3. They do have combat instinct. The Neurosynetics multi-sniper, I think, is what everyone thinks about with these guys, but they also have a parachute deployment zone killer hacker. S tier. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Access to deployment zone parachutists is about one of the best things you can have in your army, and this is a pretty good one. Yeah. The Neurosynetic Sniper can be an absolute menace to get past. I'm probably overlooking the other profiles. Like, I think they're probably fine, but those 2 right there just stick out in my mind as problem children. that I can't. I have to. I literally have to put them all the way up there. All right, Nisai. Um, these are another MSV2 MIM3 model. Uh, they climb better, I guess. Um, they can fire team, which is kind of interesting. They can be in the same fire team as a bolt, which basically means you could do something like bolt blade Nis, and you can have a Nis heavy machine gun shooting your way in from long range. So that's kind of interesting. Um, I think these guys are good. I think they are a little bit expensive, and I think they're a little overshadowed by other things in this army. But all that said, I'm going to put them in B tier. I think they are quite good. Um, I think you're not going to take them all the time, but some of the time you're going to take them, and often they're going to do good work. All right, next up is Maximus. I don't really know what to think of Maximus. I've mentioned him before. He's kind of a dumb meatball. Like, he's 2-ish wounds, like, you know, Vita 1, immunity, arm, NWI. So as long as he's getting hit by armor-based attacks, he's 2 wounds. Don't let him get hit by viral, I guess. In close combat, he is good, right? CC 23 Natural Born Warrior, CC attack -6 is good. APDA is good. A Thunderbolt +2 burst is a good weapon, but he's only BS 12 with no other skills. I don't know. I really don't know where to put this guy. Personally, I think when you put him in your list, you're probably forcing him. And I think you have much better things to do. I'm going to put him in D tier. That might be very wrong, though. But I just don't get it. He does have Takaware. He is a specialist. But I just think he's going to lose his face-to-faces trying to shoot. And in close combat, he is serviceable but expensive. So, Hetkari Shooters. This is a pretty fantastic model. BS attack -3, marksmanship, and you either get a missile launcher with an AP submachine gun or a multi-Red Fury Emerat. And they can also be a lieutenant. I'm a huge fan of the multi-Red Fury. I think that that is a fantastic weapon with marksmanship and BS attack -3. At BS 14 on an Armor 5 BTS 6 2V of profile. Yep, sign me the heck up. I'm thinking A tier. Yeah, I'm a fan. Now, you might have noticed something, so it's worth mentioning. This army is not having a good time against Albedo. So do be aware of that in your list building. Next up, we've got the Griffin. Griffins can fire team, but they can only join these duos, so you're not really likely to actually get a SD dice, which can be fine. You can be dragging along a specialist, right? There's nothing like that is not a bad thing to do. MSV1, BS 14, Armor 4, BTS 6, 2 wound guy is good. You know, the heavy machine gun, MSV1 heavy machine guns are good. No doubt about it. I think it's good. I think I'm going to put it at, you know, near the top of B tier. I think when you look at the points difference between a Nis and a Griffin, like obviously the Nis has the mimetism, has the MSV2, but the 1 wound, much lower durability on its stats, lower speed. They're pretty close to each other. So I just think it's kind of a trade-off. Orcs are buoyant and reliable. They are available to slot into a bolt fire team, which I think is handy. I will harp on. I do think the burst 3 boarding shotgun for 26 points is great. You can also have a tin bot. So in theory, you could do an orc with boarding shotgun tin bot, a bolt with killer hacker, and then like a blade. You don't have a lot of long range shooting if you were to choose that route, but it is a pretty good little hacking specialist close range fire team. All that said, in this particular army, I think orcs are fine. Uh, I think they are C tier. I think you'd rather spend your points on a more premium attacker or a cheaper option. Teutons are also in this army. Um, they do not have any fire team capability. Let me just double check. Yep. So they're kind of just cheap, impetuous guys running around. Now you do have access to the NCO X-Visor Spitfire, which if you're not taking the Magistrate is a handy little thing to have. But overall, I'm not that impressed in vanilla. I like them in fire teams, um, dragging around other things. I think they're fine. I don't think they're making your army worse because they are so inexpensive. Um, but I just think they're overshadowed. All right, Father Knights are back this edition. They do have albedo, so they went into a little portal, and weird shit happened to them, and now they have all the weird kit. I'm not going to cover every profile, but I want you to know that they're all pretty good. Crux Knights are super interesting. They're good at shooting. They have albedo. They've got martial arts. They have GACC weapons, which is good. They have all sorts of weird kit. They have strategic deployment, which is not that helpful here. Um, but I do like multi-marksman rifles. I do like Spitfires. I do like AP submachine guns. I do like hidden deployed models. I am a big fan of Crux Knights. I do think you're going to struggle to find points for them. I think they're competing with a lot of excellent things. Uh, but that said, I think they're an A tier model. I think they're quite good. Aquila Guard are always kind of interesting to me. And they can be in a duo now, but you'll never get a bonus from it. So, pros and cons. The specialist operative with the extra damage multi-marksman rifle disco baller is certainly interesting. When you have an MSV3 thing running around, dropping disco ballers to avoid the fights it doesn't want to take, and then take the fights it does. All that said, I think it's kind of expensive. I do like MSV3 this edition. I do think it's finally worth it. Um, I think you have other MSV like 1 options that are almost like good enough. Um, I think the Aquila Guard for me is B tier. I think it's fine. In some matchups, in some metas, if you're against a lot more camo, suddenly this is worth a lot more. The MSV3 is worth a lot. Maybe you just take the heavy machine gun and mow down enemy camo tokens. In other metas, it might be less useful. Swiss Guard. I adore the Swiss Guard. And they finally gave him a sword. We've talked about that before. With the martial arts CC21 guy. What is interesting in vanilla is that you actually don't get a missile option. Right? Oh no, it's right here. They have the light shotgun first. Like fools. I was going to say, that doesn't make sense. So this missile launcher, +1 SD hidden deployed missile, is terrifying. Opponents can break themselves on it. It is similar to the Blink team. Gotta change this around. But a Blink team heavy rocket launcher is a budget Swiss Guard. A heavy rocket launcher is scary. A missile with +1 SD is terrifying. BS-15 is nuts. Yeah, I have to put them in S tier. Their very existence makes this army extra scary. And the fact that your opponent has to think, how many points do they have? Do they have 60 points missing? So is it a Swiss Guard or is it a Blink and a Banshee, or is it any of the other hidden deployers? You have so many hidden deployers in this army that can obfuscate what you have. Uh, your opponent should almost always be somewhat concerned about a Swiss Guard. And honestly, you can always deploy him in the Mim 6 camo state and just have him there. You know, if your opponent is playing an army that doesn't have a lot of MSV, you know, maybe it's your reserve model and you just slap him down on the top of a building and say, you know, come at me. Good luck. Huge fan. Swiss Miss, obviously the best. And now it's unironic. I think it is S tier. Again, you're not always going to take it. You're not going to be able to afford everything up here. But the fact that you have it makes your army better, and most other armies would love to have this. Joan of Arc. So Joan has two versions. That's why there's two of the same icon there. So the first one is the sort of multi-rifle normal version. She's weird. I think there's some game here. She can join any of the Harrises. Both versions can. So that is quite interesting. She has Chain of Command non-specialist, which is weird. But yeah. And then you have lieutenant options with either extra command tokens or strategic deployment, which can be situationally really good with your fire teams. There's a lot to unpack here, and I don't know where I land. You know, attack awareness, 2 Vita, armor 5, BTS 6, NWI number 2. Like, these are all very good things. Obviously, she destroys things in close combat. You know, martial arts level 3 is quite good. I'm conflicted on where to put her though. I think she's expensive. I don't know. I really don't. I think she's C tier. I think sometimes she can be quite good, but I think she might force you into a playstyle that's maybe not the best. Joan of Arc version 2 is significantly less armored. You lose 2 armor, but you pick up some speed, 6-2. But more importantly, you get an AP Spitfire. And she's cheaper. AP Spitfire with an X-Visor is a pretty excellent weapon. Stat-wise, you're kind of just dropping a physique and some armor. So, what else do we have here? Frenzy, but they both have Frenzy. I think the AP Spitfire is significantly better. The other one you can get +1 SWIC on the lieutenant options, but I'm not convinced you're going to be able to afford to spend that SWIC. I think if you're going to take a Joan, I think the AP Spitfire is better. And I'm willing to put the AP Spitfire in B tier. I think you're going to take it sometimes. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it. I think if you're going to take this, you probably want Chain of Command in your army because Joan's going to be doing a lot of fighting. If she's not fighting, you shouldn't have brought her. And if you're doing a lot of fighting, you're pretty likely to die eventually or get EM'd or something. So, worth mentioning, right? She does have inspiring leadership. If you are going to take Joan, you should put irregular orders at a higher priority because they get converted to regular orders. I'd be cautious about going too heavy on that, though. So, Patsy. I like Patsy. AP submachine guns are good. Dragging around a couple Helots is cute. You know, leaving them standing as ARO pieces is pretty cute. She has NCO, so if you're not taking a Strategos Lieutenant, her value goes up. But I would be a little cautious about over-investing in her. Your Helots, even the fire team ones, are pretty likely to die. Like, if you're using their neurocynetics, they're still likely to die. So, if you don't get first turn, there's a good chance they're both dead, and then you're left with Patsy. And Patsy with no helots and maybe no other fire team, right? Like if both the helots die, now she's alone. Um, yeah, it's kind of just okay. I do like that she can hop into the Panoceania Fire Team 2, which is the one with bolts, blades, orcs, helots, bulleteers, and so on. So you're pretty likely to have a fire team for her to slot into. And she is a specialist, and she is an orc, basically. Um, I think she's B tier. I think she's fine. I think don't get too excited about the fire team master, though. Because your helots, if you're using them right, they're probably going to die, and that's okay. Cutter. I talked about the cutter in Varuna. It's a Mim 6 camo tag. Like, every time you play against Varuna or Vanilla Pano, you have to think in your mind, what the hell am I going to do against a cutter? If he has a cutter, what do I do? The only real counter to it, practically speaking, is a high quality MSV2 or greater shooter, or get it in close combat. If you can get within 8, get it in close combat, you can take it down. But that's easier said than done, and just because something has a weakness doesn't mean it doesn't change how you perceive the army. When you hear you're playing against Varuna or Pano, especially Vanilla Pano, now you have a list of all these things you need to worry about. You must worry about a cutter. You must worry about a Swiss Guard. You must worry about a Blink team. You must worry about the Neurocynetics Black AIR. You've got 2 kick-ass fire teams, and that's before you get out of S tier. Now, you know you're not going to face all of these things, of course. But as you're deploying, as you're building your armies, whatever your situation is, you have to be aware that they could have an Armor 8 multi-heavy machine gun BS-15 MIM-6 camo token. That's just the reality of your life. So easy S tier, absolutely devastating, can end games. The Squalus Mark II is not like that. It's not a bad piece. It is perfectly adequate. It is mid-range, right? It's 50, 65 points, 66 points. For a Armor 6 BTS 6 tag, 3 structure, it's just good. You're likely to have an engineer, right? We like the blade ops. So this can be kind of your brute force problem solver. If your opponent has albedo pieces that they've left standing to slow down all of your other nonsense, maybe this is the model that solves that problem with a heavy machine gun. In mid-range, it's pretty good. Within 8, it's actually one of the better shooters, right? Because it has a burst 3 multi-pistol. I quite like it. But all that said, it's not really faction defining. It's not something that keeps opponents up at night. It's a solid B tier model that you're going to take sometimes. Teak Belong are in a similar state. What you're really trading here is that you pick up mimetism, which is quite good. But what you're dropping is AP on your gun. So you just have a regular heavy machine gun. Yes, you have shock mines. Yes, you have the heavy flamethrower. Those are both fine weapons. You do have a better CC weapon, but you're actually not good at CC, so don't worry about that. Climbing plus is good. The Teak Belong is fine. But all that said, I think I would typically rather have the cheaper, harder hitting Ulan, or Squalos rather, or the much more expensive, much higher quality cutter, or just go with one of my cheaper, a Hectari shooter, right? That fills a very similar role. So if you were to compare the two, you're at significantly lower points. Obviously, you're less durable. You lose a point of armor. You lose a wound. But base attack -3 and marksmanship is better than mimetism most of the time. A multi-red fury, although yes, it is lower, or it's worse at its probability of survival, the AP is often going to actually make it hit as hard or sometimes harder. So I think the Hetkari shooter is a better Teak Belong. It can go prone, right? It's less of an investment. So Maximus, I don't know. I really don't know what to do with these Max models. They're expensive. Like, they're kind of durable. 4 Vita is good. Um, Obviously, he gets worse after he takes three structure of damage, and Operator Maximus pops out. It's similar to his S2 Foot Brother, where he's durable, right? Armor 6 BTS 6 immunity armor is good. You can't possess him. That's good. He's good at close combat, which is of course good. But he's not that good at shooting. And is he going to get there? Is he worth 76 points? I'm just not sure. This one is at least BS 14, so that is good at least. I like this Max more. I'm still tempted to put him in D tier, but I'm going to put him at the bottom of C tier just because I'm afraid. Let me know how wrong I am. Bulleteers. I adore Bulleteers. The Bulleteer Spitfire is such a budget little combat piece. It's really hard to say no. Excuse me. They can fire team, so you can have a duo. And 2 Bulleteers together is just really quite good. They do have repeaters. They are fast, so you can stick marksmanship on them easily. I really like Bulleteers. I think this army, I've said this a lot, is a little more interested in super high-end combat pieces. But that doesn't mean there's not room for a Bulleteer. And because of that, easy B tier. They're solid. Clippers. So this army does have quite a few pieces that you can do guided for it. You have access to pitchers, right? You've got blockers. You have a lot of hackers kind of laying around. So it is certainly an option. I will never really condone the use of guided missiles. I think it's a really boring way to play the game. But I do think Vanilla Pano can do it, and you should probably consider it in certain situations. That said, I'll put them in B tier. I think there's a place here. I think they're cheap enough, and you might have Swick left over, depending on how you build your army out, that maybe you go, yeah, I'll slot this in case I get a guided on somebody. Flashbots, you're going to take 2 of them. If it was AVA 3, this would be in a significantly higher tier, but as they are, they're cheap orders. You're going to need that because you have a lot of high-end pieces you want to play with. The mules. So the Evo Hacker is, of course, interesting if you're taking any of the remotes, if you're taking drummers, if you're taking bulleteers, if you're taking peacemakers, you're going to be much more interested in them. The Banshees are of dubious value to give this benefit to. They're jumping on 12s normally, so up to 15, which is pretty good. I think the Mulebot is situational in this army. I think you are more interested in your non-remote pieces, and I don't think you're super interested in actually combat jumping. I could be wrong on that, but they're fine. Palbots, if you're taking the blade in a fire team, the Palbot is worthless. But I do think if you're taking a solo blade, which is something you should consider doing, by the way, especially if you're taking a cutter, the Palbot is very useful. You're going to have a lot of pieces spread out. So if you do choose to take a doctor, if you do choose to take a solo engineer, having a Palbot around to help heal your cutter, to repair or heal any of your important pieces, definitely worth considering. Pathfinder bots, they don't have any fire team options. Your Panoceania Fire Team 2 has helots, which are cheaper access to sensor. So I don't really get it. I don't see them being good in any real significant way. They aren't making your army worse, but I'm not really sure why you're taking them. Peacemakers. Peacemakers got mimetism this edition. I'm going to mention that. Because Peacemakers did not need to get better, and they did. So that's pretty cool. Forward deploy 8 is great. Heavy shotgun with an Oxbot is great. You can pay an extra half swick and a point to give that Oxbot mine layer and a shock mine, which is great. The other ones just have shock mines, worth mentioning. I'm a huge fan of the Peacemaker. I think you should almost always consider taking one. If your opponent deploys poorly, these can punish quite hard. If your opponent has first turn, these can be a very annoying speed bump, right? It's a repeater. So an opponent that's hackable that comes around the corner and fights one of these things is both facing a shotgun, a flamethrower, and then all of your hackers. I think they're very good. Very, very good. Sierra bots. These are fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with them. You do have better machine guns in your army. But the Thunderbolt +1 burst, if you have 18 points and that's your last, order slot you're filling out, there's nothing wrong with that. It's quite good. All right, we're in the home stretch. Locust got a lot better this edition with the addition of the one-time use camo on the hacking device profile. So that's quite good. Firewall -3 is also quite good. They are also hidden deployers, by the way. So there's another model your opponent has to really think about. Locusts are competing with two other models, which I think makes it hard to really rate them as highly, because they're in the same points bracket as a Crocman. Crocmen are a little more expensive, but they just have innate camo, and they have infiltration. Both of those are pretty good, it turns out. And then the Scarecrow, which also has hidden deployment and MIM6 natively, and this is also in that same points bracket. So it's really interesting that this army has all three of these, because they really do compete with each other. So I'm not really sure which one I rate best. It's kind of like one big list of profiles that you have access to, right? So I'm not really quite sure. I think if you were really holding my feet to the fire, I think my favorite might be the Scarecrow, because I do like the Killer Hacker Scarecrow probably the most of the hackers. I think the Crocman is probably the most flexible. It's okay at shooting. Always having access to camo is quite good. A regular hacker with camo is good. The mine layer option is also good. The forward observer option is also good because it has a deployable repeater, so you can set up your other hackers or just push buttons without getting hacked. The Locust, because you're limited on the camo option to the one, I think is the worst of the three. I think it's still perfectly serviceable, though. I think it's a B tier model. I think the Crocman is pretty interesting. I think he's expensive, but you're getting a lot out of it, right? And I think having a non-hackable specialist is important. That's in camo state. And I do like the deployable repeater there. I think the Scarecrow is probably the best of the bunch, and a lot of that is just down to cost. It is significantly cheaper than the Crocman, and it always has camo versus the Locust. And its kit is still good. Yeah, it's really a hard situation to be in, and in kind of a good way, right? Like all three of these are really good models to have in your army. So having access to all three of them on top of the other nonsense, Vanilla Pano is stacked for camouflage guys. All right, last is the Red Eye. I am having a hard time with all of the flyers, all the vehicles. A regular Spitfire in the 40-point range is fine, I guess. MIM 6 is great, but then you realize no cover. So it's closer to MIM 3, in practical sense. Sensor's fine. There's nothing wrong with sensor. Always happy to have it. It's okay. A fire grenade launcher's cute, but I don't really care about that. So it's really just kind of a Spitfire chain rifle thing at MIM 3. I think you can do better. I think 40 points is kind of a lot. Like, I know it's structure 2, but I kind of like the Griffins more. I like the Hetkari more. And we're in a very similar points bracket. I'm not sold on the Red Eyes yet. Or, yeah, the Red Eyes. So let me know if I'm missing something on them. But I feel like they're just paying a lot, and you can just do better. So let me move this out of the way. So here's the final tier list. I think Vanilla Pano is pretty stacked. Individual profiles are excellent. There's a lot in S tier. A tier also has plenty. And B tier, there's a lot of good stuff there too. And honestly, the C tier is fine. Some of these things in C tier are higher in other armies. But this is for, Vanilla Pano. Let me know what you think in the comments. What did I get wrong? What did I get right? Tell me about Maximus. I need to know. Is he good? I don't understand. So yeah, let me know what I got right, what I got wrong, and let me know what you want to see next. Thanks for watching.